Hi, John. Welcome
Hello.
for being with me here. So, I guess I haven't really planned any questions or anything. I think I'm just going to freestyle this one because there's a lot to talk about. So, you are, I guess, Inclusive Solutions' newest employee, and you're kind of you've been doing the role of the Inclusion Facilitator, right?
Yeah, sort of. I
Yeah,
would say sort of.
because it's been difficult with lockdown and everything, right? But what I wanted to ask you was, from your experience of learning about the role and everything, what's expected of you, would you like to explain what an inclusion facilitator is?
I would say for people that are kind of like unaware of what it is, people know sort of like what a personal assistant or a carer is.
Hmm.
And I would say it's similar, but it's that sort of like, rather than helping them, I don't want to say coast through life as it is, we're actively arranging things and helping them aim higher. Does that make sense? Helping them get to places where they might not think they could have gone, or helping them achieve stuff they've not been able to achieve before. And also, like I mentioned at the start, like setting up that sort of those allies that we've got. We're trying to help them. The work we're trying to do while we're there, we would like to continue, but with the relationships that we build up through the work that we're doing.
So what's the ideal structure for an inclusion facilitator's input? Where does it start off, and then like what's the process of it, and then where does it end?
I think starting off is just like you're learning about this person. You're building up that relationship. So you know them not through and through, but pretty well. And then I would say, in my head, the scenario would be you've got that relationship building. So you know a bit about the person, and then the path meeting might come so that you and the other people involved all have these sort of goals that you want to aim for. And then after that path meeting, you can have that 1 year from now section, you can then start working towards that. So say somebody wanted to learn how to swim, but they were always too scared, or they didn't think they'd be able to have access to like a swimming lesson or something like that. We can then start going. So maybe this meeting after that is, well, let's just go and look at some, I don't know, leisure centres where there's access for you to go there. And then progressively we can start maybe enroll them into some swimming lessons, and maybe go with them so that they've got somebody that they know, so they're a little bit less anxious. So like I said, relationships, the path meeting, and then you starting to work toward those objectives. And in the midst of you aiming for those goals, you're sort of looking for positive relationships that you might be able to build up, talking to maybe like the instructor, because you're hoping that this will carry on once you've finished. And to a certain degree, like if you have to talk to an instructor or a person working there just to help them help said person, because ideally once the work is finished, those new relationships they've built up are gonna not do your work for you, but kind of maintain whatever you're trying to help this person with.
Where does it end? Where's the ideal sort of finishing point?
Ideally, in a dream world, you'd love to be able to even check off one thing. I think if you're at a point where maybe there are relationships built and they're consistently following what they want to do, I think with that support network that you might have set up afterwards, that would be a nice place to kind of take a step back.
So you're going out into the community, helping them get stuck in, helping them make contacts, and then setting them up for success, really, for when you step back.
Yeah.
Your steps back. That's cool. So that's really good. Is there anything that you've learned from doing this?
You see, because of the lockdowns and how it's affected the job I've been doing, obviously because I've initially not been able to go anywhere, the role had to switch to becoming sort of like not an advisor, sort of a mentor, someone that can go through stuff with someone, help them realize, role playing, getting them to engage with it's kind of transitioned into a sort of like big brother mentor. I've been trying to promote this positivity within him, that he can overcome these challenges. So if he's been having a bad spell at school, we'll discuss maybe one thing or highlight something that went really, really well, in an instance that when we first met and started talking to each other would have happened quite a lot, if that makes sense, or he wouldn't have been able to handle that situation. And then we'll go through, rehearse, discuss, see which one he kind of feels he can get down with. And then the next step after that is to sort of him identify that he's done it without any help. And then we've sort of like secured the bag. You know, he now knows how to deal with what's going on there, and it's allowing him to try new things, talk to people, giving him confidence to do stuff that he wouldn't do before, if that makes sense. Which is difficult over WhatsApp video call, I won't lie. I would much prefer to be with him in a space where we can try different stuff, but we're not going to just stop helping somebody because we can't go and see them. Do you know what I mean?
Really, really cool that you're doing that, and it's like almost like a therapy role. Almost, you know, you work with a delicate young person and who's been through a lot already, and there's a lot of barriers in place as well, like you're saying, like COVID.
Yeah.
So it must be challenging. So it's really good that you must have made a little bit of progress here. Do you think that he's come a long way since your input?
I'm constantly told that I will never know the true impact of like the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Maybe until like if we accidentally bumped into each other years ahead, then maybe I would find out. But until I might overlook the impact that I'm having on him. From other people working within this particular like job, I'm being told that quite a lot is changing. I would consider, obviously with this kind of work, it's never going to be a constant like positive increase. There's bumps in the road all the time. I would like to think though that I have started to notice things within him that are changing for the best. So I would say at this point I am starting to see some kind of positive results.
That's really, really good. And so when you're doing all this is quite intense work for you, really. So are you getting any support with this?
So I currently am talking to this person once every 2 weeks. And after every 2 or so sessions, I get a support supervision session, educational psychologist that kind of advises me on how to approach the different situations.
Who's your supervisor?
Colin Newton.
Okay, good. So let's talk about Colin then. And when he's supervising you, like, how is it? What do you guys do?
So we typically start off by discussing. So whenever I'm having these sessions with this person, I'll always make notes and highlight really good stuff that's been going on, stuff that maybe is triggering in a certain time frame. And then that's what I will bring to Colin. And then he will help me sort of maybe make sense of something, encourage me to reinforce something that I've said before, advise me on different approaches. It makes me feel like I am doing the right thing whenever I'm having these conversations, and also having an extra person to kind of advise me on how to approach something makes me feel a lot. Obviously it's quite intense work, so being able to know sort of which direction to take something, especially from another person, is really helpful, because otherwise I feel like I'd be a bit lost, you know what I mean?
So what are the plans going forward after lockdown eases, after we're allowed back into the world? Would you be doing anything different?
Get them involved in the community, whatever it is. Because like the main issues we've been dealing with at the minute are behaviour at home and behaviour at school, survival strategies, coping with the anxiety in these 2 scenarios. Because really and truly, that's all that's been available for the last year. You've been at home, or most people have been at school, and that's it. So once the world sort of opens up again, the plan is to go down and sort of approach the anxiety in different environments, you know what I mean? So like going to shops, ordering your own stuff, getting on the bus on your own, traveling, meeting targets that you weren't so sure you could do initially, and just taking baby steps to get there. that is hopefully what will be happening post lockdown.
Nice. So did you, at the beginning of the input, did you do a path meeting?
In our dream section, we had the ambition to be sort of like a builder engineer. So one of the things that we're going through at the minute is this transition to a new school where they'll be able to get involved in an engineering course. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think before you had that path meeting, do you think if you didn't have that path meeting, then that would have come out? Do you think that the engineering and, you know, wanting to be a builder, do you think that ambition would have come out and it would have manifested in the same way?
I think for me, without the path, I don't think they have the belief that they can get to there. So with the dream section and then the 1 year from now, they realize that there are steps that they can make to get to where they want to be. Do you know what I mean? And without that, they might have these dreams and ambitions, but just have no idea of how to get there. They might have seemed out of reach, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you say you got everyone on the same page.
And also highlighting like how we can get there rather than just thinking about what we want. We can make it clear that there are things that we can do within like a year isn't a long time.
Yeah.
And we can see that if we get from here through all this process, we can actually start to reach those dreams and stuff like that. So a lot of this work that I'm doing, I've got practice what you preach, really. And a lot of the stuff that I've learned from this, especially talking to Colin and like the methods we've been discussing, I'm putting into practice myself.
What are you doing at uni then?
I'm doing psychology at the minute.
Is this because of this work that you wanted to do that?
It wasn't initially. It just happened to fall into place sort of at the same time. I'd done my application for psychology prior to starting the role that I'm in now. But it obviously, the two sort of coincide. It's really good to have both, I believe.
That's really good that you're doing that, man. I think it's going to be a really good career ahead of you, really. So if we end up having more inclusion facilitators on the team, what would your advice to them be?
From my personal experience, I would say the initial startup, you just try not to overthink it. Do you know what I mean? You're about to become very involved in a person's life. And if you consider how you would like, if you were to say somebody was going to be your inclusion facilitator, for example, how would you like this new person to get involved with your life? Do you know what I mean? I think really approach them as if you were trying to make a new friend. Do you know what I mean? Because I would say, like, the relationship that I built up with the person I'm working with at the minute, I'm currently one of the only people that they're happy to talk to. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's because initially I was just trying to not be their friend, obviously, because that's not the role, but build up that relationship with someone as if you would like somebody to build up a new relationship with you. And be confident, I think. Ask for help if you need it. Yeah, I think that for someone starting out, that's what I'd kind of advise them.
You touched on an interesting thing there, where there's this professional friendship, relationship thing going on, like a balance. It's always been there with everyone who's worked with people in this way. Like if you've ever been a personal assistant or a carer or anything like that, you have to walk the line of, am I their friend or am I their employee? And then, like, you know, where's the line, and how do you make sure that boundary is really, really clear with that person so they don't get confused, and also so you don't get confused? For me,
one of the things is from the get-go, they need to be aware that you're not going to be there forever. If they can gauge that early on, then obviously they're not going to get overly attached, because they know that after a certain point, you're not going to be there anymore. If I was just to be advising my friend, maybe there'd be certain things you wouldn't say to someone because you don't want to upset them. And of course, this role you don't want to upset anyone, but sometimes you have to put people in a bit of an uncomfortable situation, whether it's going somewhere or discussing something, to help them realize how they can do something, or that they can actually do something. Obviously, in an ideal world, you would do that with your friends as well, but I think it is like more particular in this kind of role. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying, that you'd be more brutal with them?
Brutal is a bit of a harsh word for it, but
be honest.
In essence, yeah.
Because you're there to help them, I guess, learn and grow.
Yeah.
I think, depending on the situation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, it's completely like dependent on the situation, because you might push someone and then they never want to talk to you ever again. Do you know what I mean? You've got to find that fine line of stern advice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, you've been that older brother figure to this young person right now, so that's what kind of advice that you need from that figure. Is there anything that you can see in this young person that you really like, or that you think is really good?
At the minute, so this young person is very intelligent and really like wise beyond their years, but I don't think acknowledges that. And I think the way that sort of anxiety is affecting behavior and then affects relationships in school and things like that, that is getting in the way of them realizing how clever they are, how they can apply themselves really, really well, and even in situations where they're like not comfortable. And even as simply as like their behavior, they consistently know how to make the right decision, and sometimes just don't. So the work that's the kind of work that I've been focusing on at the minute, while we've just been able to have conversations on the phone, is like trying to get them to realize and how like there's no ceiling for them. I think if they really wanted to, the sky's the limit. So I'm trying to like, we've built up some mantras that we've got, they're on their wall at the minute, so they've constantly got that kind of, if they're in doubt, look at that, remind themselves of what they've got. And I will consistently try and find evidence throughout what they've done between the times we've been talking to kind of transition those mantras from just being something they say to something they believe. Yeah, so that's the work we've been doing at the minute, which is what we can kind of do while we're talking on the phone. Yeah, the sort of work that Inclusive Solutions are doing, I would like to see it. I don't want to say everywhere, because then maybe there wouldn't be an Inclusive Solutions if everyone was doing it. But in a dream world, that's what would be happening. Like, I never knew that there was something like this. So for me, maybe it's just that if I had no idea, then there are bound to be other people that just have no idea that there's something like this out there. It seems unfair to me that not everybody can have access to something like this. There might not be anything like this in their sort of area. Do you know what I mean? So for Inclusive Solutions, for me, what they're doing is amazing in highlighting like that strive for success for everybody.
Thank you, man. That's really good. I think we got enough there.
Yeah, bro.
But, really good talking to you, and you've got some really interesting perspectives, man. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.